I'm in the studio talking with Vikki Cotton from Live Well Southwest. Vikki, we're talking about the topic of stopping smoking.
Mm-hmm.
Tell you what, just for background before we, because there's lots and lots that we can talk about around the support that's going to be available for people to stop smoking. What are the not triggers? What are the reasons why it's so hard to stop smoking? Can you unpack that? Because a lot of people just feel like, oh, I should be able to and I can't, and it's really not like that, is it?
No, it's really not. And I think I just said previously, it's recognised as a chronic relapsing addiction. And that's because when you smoke, when you burn that cigarette, it's giving off various chemicals. And one of those is nicotine. And nicotine in itself isn't particularly harmful, but it's incredibly addictive. And so what happens is when you smoke, the nicotine triggers little receptors in your brain that basically want more and more nicotine. So the more you smoke, the more you would want the nicotine to keep these receptors kind of from being hungry. And the other problem is when that nicotine goes into those little bits in your brain, it releases a feel-good hormone. So you get that sense of relaxation and satisfaction from having the cigarette, but it's just fueling that addiction. And what happens with the nicotine, it's out of your system really quickly. We're talking only about a couple of hours. So then if you you get those cravings and withdrawal symptoms, which can be really quite fierce. So the way you sort that out is by having another cigarette. So it just keeps this cycle going. And the other problem is, if you think of it as the nicotine's the drug part of the addiction, but then your cigarette is timed with all sorts of things. That could be first thing in the morning when your nicotine's low, down to the kitchen, kettle on, light up, and you associate that cigarette with your early morning coffee. So that's kind of a subconscious link.
That's what I found quite difficult when I stopped smoking, was the associations. I found it, for a while I didn't sit down and have a cup of tea because I was like, oh, what's the point? It was very, those little things, because there were, even after the first 7 days, 14 days, 21 days, a couple of months physical, weaning off of the addiction, those memories associated to smoking just kept coming back every time I did those things.
Really powerful.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right, Ian. And that is probably the hardest part. The nicotine, I say it's easy. It's the easier part because we can give nicotine replacement therapy. There's medications, even e-cigarettes, all different things that can help keep that nicotine trickle in so the cravings aren't as fierce. But what does happen is you still have all those subconscious associations. It can be, I'm an ex-smoker myself, and mine was like a glass of wine in one hand. If I went out socialising, a cigarette in the other, I couldn't have one without the other. So when I had given up, it was kind of, I felt like I'd had part of my arm gone. It can be after a meal. Some people will push back from the table, light up. And those are the things as well with the team of practitioners are really skilled at working with to help look for alternatives. And sometimes it can be even a simple tweak, like in the morning, not actually switching the kettle on first thing. It could be, I've had individuals I've been supporting who will go out for a walk instead of that, or they'll have their shower first before going downstairs. So it's breaking those links between the nicotine drug and the behaviour that's been linked with it. And there is also, of course, that sense of satisfaction. Some people feel it helps them reduce anxiety. If they're down, if they're feeling worried about something, they light up. But that's a false perception because all it's doing is feeding the cravings again. But they've associated that going outside to have a cigarette and have a breath when you can still go outside and have a breath without the cigarette. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. I mean, working with someone around trauma-informed stuff at the moment and conversations in that arena about behaviours that are actually the only relief for some people that are like hypervigilant all the time.
Yes.
So this behaviour is, that's my place where I'm off. Is there an element of that to smoking sometimes?
Definitely. And sadly, we do know that there's a much higher prevalence, so a much higher rate in those people who have mental health conditions, anxiety, depression, and of course they then bear greater health harms. But for them, it can be more complicated in giving up. But that's not to say they don't want to, and they can't without the support. I think that's key. And I even say to some patients, it's kind of... it's almost like you lose a friend to give up. It's almost like a bereavement when you stop smoking, because they've been there through all the bad times. They might be the only time you've socialised, and there is that social interaction of, say, rolling tobacco or, you know, handing round. So it is really powerful. And you know, and great that you've mentioned the trauma-informed support, because we know that also smoking can be a symptom that someone's had a really complex life with lots of challenges. Smoking, again, can be the last thing they have. So it's recognising that and coming back to that non-judgmental approach and really supporting that individual.
Great stuff. Well, look, that's another good place to stop for a moment. We'll take a break, and we'll be back with Vikki talking about this topic right after this. Don't forget, if you're missing any of this interview, we'll give you details in a minute. You can catch it on our Listen Again. All that and more to come. Right, so Vikki, we're talking about stopping smoking. We've talked a bit around the reasons why people smoke, and we could talk forever. There's as many reasons why people smoke as there are people, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
But the help and support that's available, because when I stopped, it was like, oh, I better stop then. And there were some patches, but that was it. You just knew you could buy some patches.
Yeah.
What's available, and how do people access that support now?
Well, there's lots of different things. And again, I could probably be here all day talking about it. I think I'll start with our service. So we run a community stop smoking support service. So I was talking earlier about, you know, if you go to a specialist service, it really increases your chances of success. We can have a tailored individual plan. And the practitioners have clinics throughout Plymouth on 6 days a week. So we might be at the Cumberland Centre on a Saturday, Reese Centre across in Plymstock. We work out of lots of different places, and we have out of hours as well, because we know, you know, people work, there's different commitments, and it's trying to make it as easy as possible, because any barriers can be that instant barrier to, it's, you know, too difficult, so I'll just carry on smoking. And within those clinics, the practitioners will really get to know the individual coming. They'll talk about your smoking history, why you like smoking, because that can be just as important. It's kind of that approach where to really understand what it is that you like about smoking, what you don't like, and what your motivation is, which we talked about earlier. And it's really key to, you know, it shouldn't be the reasons we think it might be. It's what's individual to Ian, what's individual to that person that will help. So that's the first thing. And then there's all different sorts of tools that we can use. So we were talking about the nicotine being kind of the addictive drug. And there's things like the patches, which you've talked about, but now there's also other things like gum, lozenges, inhalators. And what we try and look for when we do that first assessment is what's going to work best for you. Because, example, if you don't like chewing gum, then nicotine chewing gum is just not going to work for you. And we always look at what we call combination therapy. So have a patch, which gives you a very low level hum, not a huge amount of nicotine, it's just in the background. But when those cravings spike in, then you need another product just to help keep those dampened down. There's also different medications now. Some people have heard of something called Champix, which that's kind of like the brand name from one of the companies, but it's a medication called varenicline that helps to take away that kind of sense of satisfaction and what the nicotine can do from you, because it blocks those little bits in your brain so the nicotine can't get in. And that's a medication that has to be prescribed. There's a new one on the block called Cytisine, which is a much shorter course. And those two were specifically designed to help you stop smoking. And there's another medication called Zyban, which isn't as effective, but some people use it well. And then the third kind of what we call quit aid to help with the nicotine side of things is something called an e-cigarette, which I know there's lots in the press about e-cigarettes, and it can kind of polarize opinions. But when it's used, when you use one from so an approved one from, you know, a bricks and mortar shop, a known shop, and you use it for giving up smoking, it's not risk-free. Nothing is, let's be honest here, but really a good body of evidence. So people like the Royal College of Physicians, British Thoracic Society, Cancer Research, expert consensus is it's just a fraction of the risk compared to smoking. And it does suit some people. That's
a good message, because there is information out there, oh, it's bad for you anyway, blah blah. But that fraction of the risk statement is the key takeaway, isn't it? It's there may be risks, but compared to smoking, it's
really, I talk with my hands a lot, so which isn't good for radio,
okay.
but it's a small fraction of the risk. And we are talking about using it as a tool for quitting smoking. Other uses of vape is another different subject. And we've seen some really good successes, and there's increasing body of research by all the clever people that actually using an e-cigarette to quit smoking is becoming one of the most effective methods.
Wow.
And you can still use it with a patch as well.
Do people get stuck on the vape after that then?
It can be harder to come off them. You know, I won't kind of say that it isn't, but it's something we do talk about throughout the time that we see an individual and look at maybe a plan to help, you know, wind down and come off. It can take a little bit longer. So, for example, we say with nicotine that it can take roughly 10 to 12 weeks for your brain to kind of calm down from the nicotine and not need it. So if you're just having the nicotine replacement therapy, you'd have it for a lot less longer maybe than a vape. It can be a couple of months past. But again, there are tips and tricks to how you come down off of that. But again, it's better to be on a vape longer term once you've given up the smoking than to revert back to smoking. It's that balance of risk, really.
It sounds like the landscape for helping to stop smoking is a lot different to what it was when I was growing up and when I did stop. So maybe we'll come and talk a little bit more about things that have changed. I know some of our listeners, my kind of age and not that much younger, might be in a similar frame of mind to me. So that'll be helpful to talk about. We're going to take a break for some music. We'll be back with Vikki right after this. Right, Community Matters, often a good place for sharing the most intimate and vulnerable failures of the presenter. We'll have a bit of a go at that, shall we? So I started smoking when I was 11 years old, Vikki, which I think I mentioned off air, but that was, you know, and it was back in the 70s. It was in the back lane, older stepbrother and his mates. He was like quite a few years older than me. I wanted to be like the big boys. So there was a cool factor back then. I don't know. So I'm wondering what smoking is like now, because you mentioned the costs. Like £100 a week, proportionate to wages. That's massively higher than it used to be when I was smoking. So that's a huge effect. And the cool factor, there was a cool factor back then if you smoked, and also there was a sense of, hey, give up if you want, you know. And we all kind of knew, it's not good for us. It can't be good for us. But the overwhelming message of this is really bad for your health wasn't quite there. Particularly 70s, 80s. In the 90s, it was coming in more, I felt, and it really became apparent to me when I had kids. So that was important for me. But the landscape of it now? Do you know anything now about what is it that's attracting young people? Because I've seen a number more young people starting to smoke. Is it a cultural, this is the thing we do? Any idea what's going on?
Do you know, that's a really good question, and that one is probably one that's more difficult to answer. Certainly kind of our generation, it was everywhere, wasn't it? It was plastered onto, you know, the side of racing cars.
All over the place,
yeah. You had all the cool advertisements, and then the cool girls at school smoked. So, you know, you tried to copy them with different, how you blew out your smoke. And I think some of that went because all the advertising and what we call the triggers, so that stuff about cigarettes in your face, which could be really hard if you were a smoker trying to give up. What we have seen just recently is perhaps it's some of the kind of film stars. It's been on a bit on social media again. I can't remember off the top of my head which one it was. It was somebody like Taylor Swift. I'm not saying, oh gosh, I probably shouldn't say that, but it was somebody at that kind of popularity that was seen with cigarettes. So it kind of crept back in a little bit. We're not seeing perhaps the uptake in young people that we did kind of when I was a teenager, but it's still something that we don't want young people to get involved with. And we still know that if a parent smokes, it's probably going to increase at least 4 times the risk that child will take up smoking as well. So we know that's a risk. And smoking rates have come down. I mean, you know, over the last kind of 30 years, we've gone from nearly a third of England smoking, around about 27%, down to about 11.6% now. So it has come down, but it's often centred in areas of deprivation. It increases health inequalities, and of course people are, because it's so addictive, they'll spend it on the tobacco rather than maybe you know, nutritious food, socialising, getting a bus fare to see people.
That whole thing about stress and stress relief, I mean, it's really like putting too many things in one bracket, though. if you're living in an area of deprivation in the city, just thinking of the heat map of Plymouth or where the areas of deprivation are, your stresses are off the chart in terms of just getting through daily life, and a cigarette is seen as maybe an only, I've got a little bit of light relief here. But it's an awful trap, isn't it? Because then you've added another stress. Well, I can't actually afford to do this.
Yeah.
Here's a hot topic for me. I mean, I don't know if you can answer this in your official capacity. So I've sometimes wondered if the stigmatizing of smoking is a particularly helpful approach in getting people to stop, like the message of it's bad, you're bad, you've got to stop, and we're going to charge you a lot of money for it as a punishment. What are your thoughts on that, if you're allowed to say?
Yeah, I agree we need to get away from the stigma message. Absolutely agree on that. And that's something we work hard on. And again, it's that, that I said earlier on about that non-judgmental approach. It's no longer a waggy finger. It's really working alongside people where they're at with that. And as we were talking about, having that real individualised plan that's working with that person. Part of the reason the money's gone up is partly to do with the polluter pays. So it's going back to the tobacco companies, who do have some slight underhand ways of kind of promoting smoking or making it not seem as bad for you. But we try and get away from talking about what it is bad, because everyone knows really, and it's actually about what it can give you. So that might be finances, that might be the fact that almost immediately when you give up smoking, your body will start regenerating, and it's really quick. We're talking about 48 hours with the carbon monoxide out, you're breathing a bit easier, then within a couple of weeks your circulation improves. In a year your risk of having a heart attack is halved.
That's a huge message, isn't it? Halving is a big
absolutely.
When you're talking marginal wins with statins, which are really being put out a lot by GPs, and there's the whole conversation around that, but those are marginal wins, but half is a big number.
Definitely. And within even weeks, I've seen people come back in when I was running clinics, and already they were able to run up the stairs. I remember a particular patient who was very low in mood, who had diabetes, who walked with a stick. I could hear this person coming down the corridor because of their breathing. And I remember one appointment, this person crept up on me almost because I hadn't heard them, because their breathing was so much better. But because their breathing was better, they could get out for some of the walks in the park that they hadn't been doing. And then they were meeting up with friends, and then they lost weight, and then they didn't need the stick. So it has so many benefits, and often stopping smoking is a catalyst to lots of other changes.
Listen, I'd like to pick up on that, because a good way to finish off the interview is going to be talking about, look at all the things we can look forward to when we start smoking, and you've started to do that, which is brilliant. So we'll do that, and we'll also have a chat about ways that you can engage with the campaign for stopping smoking in the new year, and it'll be ways that you can access help at any point in the year when you're listening to this interview, or even when you're not. So we're back with Vikki right after this. Vikki, last part of our interview, so let's really focus. Let's finish on the positives, because I when I started smoking, this is a really weird one. Okay, what I noticed quite quickly when I blew my nose, my snot was a different colour, and that's a bit grim for the radio, but it was it was clean. That was a big difference. But then other benefits, I noticed the breathing thing as well, but. Carry on with the benefits that you started to talk about earlier, because stopping smoking produces huge wins, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. I think we've already mentioned some of the things like risks from heart attacks go down within a year, but much, much quicker than that. You're getting better circulation, your heart's able to work better, blood's circulating and pumping through your muscles. And the benefits, I was just talking earlier about one of the patients that, had so many different changes in their life. It can actually help mental health as well. There's this perception that it helps stress, but it keeps you, I think of it almost like iron links, keeping you chained into this addiction, which you've lost that control in your life. Once you start smoking, you're addicted, that control's gone. So it's giving you back that control and ability, and you're not in this craving withdrawal cycle the whole time.
You do feel, I felt I wouldn't have used the language back then, but you feel empowered again. You feel like, I'm not actually, I've got agency here. I can actually make this thing happen, and it spills to other areas. Yeah.
You're not kind of working out where's the next shop that you can get your cigarettes from. You're not on a train, because obviously we can't smoke on public transport. You're not kind of climbing the walls thinking, I need to get out and have my cigarette.
I'm cutting across again, sorry. No, it's me, honestly. You're the professional. I'm just babbling on. I used to have this thought when I was smoking. I would occasionally think, but what if I got in a situation where I was in the middle of nowhere, I had no cigarettes and I couldn't get any, and I would actually worry about it.
Yeah.
Because I was so addicted.
And then when you've got the cravings as well, it just all escalates. I had somebody give up. Their reason was because they were going to visit a relative in New Zealand and they were worried about the long haul flight. So that was their motivation. And, it worked perfectly. And we even worked out a way they could have nicotine replacement on the plane. They didn't actually need it. It was almost like a talisman in their pocket. And that for them was absolutely amazing. And although the motivation was short term, they gave up, and I've been in contact with them. They're still given up and would never go back.
What about general life and social benefits? So one for me was I no longer have to worry about my kids if I'm in back you can't smoke in cars now with people in them anyway, but the knock-on effects of my kids. I was more able to enjoy my life with my family without thoughts of negativity around the smoking. I mean, that was a huge win, really.
Yeah, and I think, and that's a motivation for some people for their family. And, dad or mum, not genderising here, but kicking a ball around with their kids, all of a sudden they've got that energy. And it's all those unexpected benefits that suddenly pop up. Even skin clearer, I had I can say a young lady that gave up, and it was part of her thing was because it made her skin look better. And it did, because you have almost like that greyish sallow tinge when you're a heavy smoker, and it changes. So there's all sorts of benefits. We could be here till the
and I guess smoking nowadays, you're in a minority. You're on a very small. Well, you're on a minority nowadays rather than the majority, which was me. And you can't smoke in pubs now. You can't smoke in restaurants now. You can't smoke. So the places where it was sociable to smoke, it isn't. So, I mean, another win, you're not going to be ducking out in the rain at the end of a meal with your friends from work to have your cigarette, or are you going to join in the conversation around the table?
Absolutely. You're not kind of, keeping an eye on when you can get out. You're not coming back stinking of smoke, because that was something that I used to find when I smoked, and I didn't actually realise probably how much it did smell. Oh,
let's unpack that. I'm sorry, folks. If you're listening and you smoke, you're a bit smelly. I'm sorry. It's just the way it is. I didn't realise how smelly I must have been, but
But you get the sense of smell back, and food tastes good again. That's the other thing. Your taste buds kick back in, so you can enjoy things a lot more.
That's a biggie. The taste thing is really, it's nice enjoying food and having a variety of
and
taste.
Smelling it, and it's
Well, I mean, you could talk for hours about this whole topic. I know you could. And we really appreciate the work that you and the Wellbeing team do for us in many ways in Plymouth, not just this, but thanks for this particularly. Vikki, how can people engage with help for stopping smoking, support and different services?
Okay, so there's a couple of things. We have a phone number that people can ring in on just for a friendly chat. We have a website, and there's the email there. So we have Smoke Free Plymouth website, and the number and a little form that you can email in on. We're out and about in the city a lot in wellbeing hubs. We do things like in Stoptober we had a bus out and about, so you can always come and talk to us. We have drop-ins, places like Ernest English House. For those that might not actually want to come for a face-to-face, we also have there's the NHS Stop Smoking app, and Live Well South West are about to go live, hopefully towards the end of this month, with a dedicated smoke-free app that can help with a quit plan to supply nicotine replacement therapy. So again, very individualised, but as so many people, work digitally, that would suit them. There's stuff on the website, Better Health. There's good kind of like a tailored quit plan on there and information. But certainly, ringing into us, having that, it's an... ringing into us as well would just be a friendly chat. We're not going to sign you up or force you to do anything. And the number for that would be Plymouth, so 01752 437-177.
Yay, excellent. I dropped that one. You couldn't see me because I turned the camera off. I dropped that one on Vikki while she was talking. Sorry, Vikki. And I guess the website, if you, I mean, that's great having the number, because some people digitally excluded are listening on FM, and it's great to phone. And some people will want to talk to somebody as well, but you can get the number off the website as well, presumably.
Absolutely.
I guess searching Live Well and Stop Smoking Plymouth, that would get you to pretty much where you want to start.
I mean, we've got a dedicated website now, Smoke Free Plymouth. Some of it is still in development. It's quite new, but there's lots of tips and tricks and kind of links on that. We've also got our One New Plymouth website that talks about all our service to do with kind of nutrition, move more, falls prevention. So if you put either One New Plymouth, Smoke Free Plymouth, you'll get one or the others up.
That's really cool. Vikki, we've run out of time. Sorry, I know we could talk more, and you thought we didn't have enough to talk about, so there you go. Thank you ever so much for coming in. It's been really informative, and I'm sure very helpful for people listening.
Thank you, Ian.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
So if you missed any of that, you can catch it on the listen again, crossrhythms.co.uk/Plymouth. And check our Listen Again page. Just forgot the website address then. Also catch us on YouTube. Check out the YouTube channel, Cross Rhythms YouTube, and at CR Plymouth. I think we are on your various social media things that the young people are into. But anyway, that'll do for now. We're back on Community Matters every weekday at 11. Make sure you stay tuned for more music and life. We're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on Cross Rhythms. And we'll catch you next time on the show.